Hello and welcome to an all-new Sports Beat right here on Heat. I'm your host, Anders Jorstad, and as always, we've got a jam-packed show for you this evening. We're going to be talking about the CAA champion women's soccer team as well as our volleyball and men's basketball teams. And we've got Luke Brown from the men's soccer team in studio to talk about their season, which wrapped up this past weekend. Don't go anywhere because Sports Beat starts right now. Before we dive into our discussions, Lanaya Harris is here with the Week in Review. Take it away, Lanaya.
Thanks, Anders. Here's your Week in Review. On Saturday, November 4th, our men's soccer team lost 4-1 against William and Mary in the CAA quarterfinal at Hofstra Soccer Stadium. Although the men's soccer team was unable to bring home a win, our women's soccer team won the CAA championship on November 5th against Northeastern. This was the first time the women's soccer team brought home the Colonial Athletic Association title since 2012. The game was played at Hofstra Soccer Stadium and our girls won 2-1. Next up is women's volleyball. On Sunday, November 5th, Hofstra's women's volleyball played and topped William and Mary. Sophomore Laura Michulo gave the Pride a match-high 18 kills and 12 digs. Finally, our men's wrestling team opened their season on November 5th with an EIWA win over Franklin and Marshall. Overall, it's been a pretty outstanding week for Hofstra sports. This has been your Week in Review. I'm Lanaya Harris. Now back to you, Anders.
Thanks, Lanaya. Now, guys, as I bring my panelists Victoria Conway and Kenny Conrad, let's discuss this Hofstra Pride women's soccer team. They had a terrific season, went 11-0 in conference play, sweeping the conference for the first time since 2010, and they won the CAA tournament, beating Northeastern 2-1 in that title game to clinch a berth to the NCAA tournament. Now, they also swept the regular season awards for the most part. They got the Coach of the Year, the Player of the Year, and the Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of very impressive awards for this squad. Which one stands out the most to you?
To me, it's Madeline Anderson winning Defensive Player of the Year for this Hofstra women's soccer team. She had an incredible season. She played in every single minute that Hofstra women's soccer team was on the field this season. They had 10 shutouts this year. She was absolutely unbelievable and vital to this team's success.
Anderson did have a great season, but to me, I'm going to go with Kristen Desmond, a player who was always defensive specialist for this team, and all of a sudden in this season, she's asked to be an offensive catalyst for this team, and she did a tremendous job. 9 goals, 21 points overall across the CAA, so she really did a great job stepping in a new role in her senior year and really delivering for the Pride.
Yeah, you talk about a player who was formerly a defender and moved to forward, kind of struggled with the position at first, but became really kind of the catalyst for this team's offense, not only scoring goals, getting assists, but even when she wasn't, she was always creating that offense for that team and kind of as a defensive blueprint for a team. It was good to have a defender there to kind of help out this squad. Now they go to Auburn on Friday in their first NCAA tournament game. Before, if they win that game, have to play the top team in the country. Kind of a tough draw for them going on the road very far in both of those scenarios, playing Stanford if they win against Auburn. Do you think that's going to kind of hinder their success there, having to play that far? Do you think it's going to be kind of a struggle for them?
Well, it's always tough when you go on the road, but I really think that this Hofstra women's soccer team has overcome so many obstacles this season that this shouldn't really pose too big of a threat going into Auburn. Auburn's a team that they lost in the quarterfinal of the SEC tournament this year. They are a very good team. We can't take that away from them, but I think this is a winnable match for this Hofstra team.
I like the fact that they're going to have to go on the road sometimes, getting away from home, limiting the distractions. Even though they did great in the CAA tournament, which was hosted here, I think it's important for them to be able to get on the road, try to find success in Auburn. And as you mentioned, didn't have too great of a season this year, but historically they've done a great job. Last year, an Elite 8 appearance, and the year before, a Sweet 16. So definitely a very experienced team down in Auburn.
Yeah, it's good for the Pride to be able to play these kinds of teams. Not often they get to play these kinds of historic teams or teams that have this kind of history with women's soccer. Obviously, there's a few in their conference as well, but kind of getting out of their conference helps them a little bit. Do you think the pressure is off them a little bit now that they've already won the CAA and won against every single opponent they had in the CAA, or do you think there's added pressure because it's an NCAA tournament game?
Well, I think what you said there is key. It's an NCAA tournament game. I think that there's always a ton of pressure when you come into these games. Obviously, they've done everything to this point well. They swept the CAA. They did not lose a game. They won their conference tournament. So obviously, they had a great season, but the pressure's still on. It's the NCAA tournament.
pressure's a kind of a strong word because it's, like you said, a tremendous season for the Pride. I think it's an exciting opportunity for them. They're on a 12-match win streak. I mean, that's amazing in its own right. They haven't lost since September 4th. So for the Pride team right now, they're as good as they've ever been. So they're really playing collectively cohesive. So I think it's more of an exciting challenge for them. It's going to be in a hostile environment, having to go on the road, but at the same time, it's a complete team. I think they have a great shot against Auburn.
And what players do you think are really going to be important for them if they want to succeed in this tournament?
Well, to me, I think you always look at Kristen Desmond. She is the star of this team. She's kind of the catalyst for everything they've done. But all season long, they've really played a team game. You know, it's been the defense some games. It's been the offense, the goaltending. So I think they've been focused around a team effort. But if I had to pick one player, I'd say Kristen Desmond.
Definitely think Desmond's going to show up. She showed up all season long. I want to see a player like Sabrina Bryant, kind of had a quiet CA tournament, but also had a solid season this year. Definitely think she has an opportunity to perform really well against Auburn.
Now, from a team whose season is now going to the postseason to a team who's just about to begin the postseason in the volleyball squad, today they actually just beat Northeastern 3-0 on the road, sweeping a very good team, a team that they actually have to beat because they're above them in the standings, and that was one thing that we were going to talk about. Hofstra 8-6 right now. They're now 9-6 in conference play, still fifth in the standings, and the team right below them, who's sixth, is Elon at 5-9. So a pretty big drop off. The top 6 teams make the CAA tournament. So regardless, it looks like the team is probably going to get there. But how important do you think down the line it's going to be to beat that JMU team on the road as well? And what does this Northeastern win say about this team?
Well, I think it's a big win, this Northeastern win. I think that it's obviously something that is important, but really, when it comes to that JMU game, it's an important game. They're one of the stronger teams in the conference.
Well, the Northeastern win definitely going to give them a lot of confidence going into that JMU game. But JMU's game, I think, is crucial. Very strong possibility that'll be who they'll be facing. In the first round of CA play, they've already lost once. It was a heartbreaker. They were up 2-0 in their home court against JMU, and they let that one slip away. So I think going and finishing the road down in Virginia against JMU, huge competition for the Pride, and if they could get that win, take that momentum into the first round, potentially facing off against the Dukes again.
Now, even late into this season, still struggling to figure out who that libero will be for this team. It was Kaylee Denham to start the season. Halfway through conference play, they changed it over to Ivania Ortiz, who was an outside hitter as a freshman for this squad, and a very strong one at that. But in that last match against William Mary and in this match against Northeastern, moving back to Denham, which player do you expect to kind of get more reps there going forward?
Well, I definitely think that Kaylee Denham is the one that they want on that back line just because of the performance of Ortiz throughout the season as an attacker. When I was calling a game and she was playing the back line, I was thrown off because the entire season she's second on the team in kills, so it's very unexpected, but at the same time, it just shows how much they've been lacking on that back line, and they've been leaning on Kaylee Denham to try and be that strong libero. They lost Sophia Black, who did a great job back there last season for them. At the same time, I really think it needs to be Denham because you want to have Mashulo and Ortiz on that front line attacking.
And I like what you said there. Ivania Ortiz is obviously one of their better offensive players, so I think that they need to have her back up on the front line. Kaylee Denham is going to need to step up in that libero position, especially if this team wants to make a deep run in the CAA tournament.
Do you think this team has the weapons to really compete in that CAA tournament? Obviously, a lot of very talented teams, but there's a lot of players on this team, very young squad, who are still also very talented and have shown the potential to be good players.
I think this Pride team definitely has the weapons. You mentioned young players, but head coach Emily Mansour never uses youth as an excuse. She expects excellent effort every single time from her freshmen, and she's not afraid to throw them out there on that court. So Emma Price, Ivania Ortiz, Anna Martinovic, all these different players really do need to step up. And what better way to prove yourself to your head coach than your first year in a tournament and be able to produce? I mean, you saw Mashulo last year as a freshman. I mean, she's a different type of player. But at the same time, she stepped up, and there's no reason why Ortiz, Price, all these other players that are going to be called upon can't perform as well.
Well, I think for this volleyball team, it's all about closing out matches. They've shown that they can play with some of the better teams in the conference for spurts, but they need to find that consistent game. Like you said, they're a young team, and I think that if they can kind of find that consistent game and go on a little run here towards the end of the regular season, I think that they have an opportunity to do that.
Now we have a team whose season is just going to get started in the men's basketball team. They're starting their season on Friday against Army West Point, and this team picked 4th in the CAA in the preseason polls. This is a team that we saw spurts from last year. Kind of disappointed last year, and they lost to Delaware in the first round of the tournament, but they had a lot of very good players, some star power really coming out with Justin Wright Foreman, who kind of became a breakout player for this team unexpectedly, but has shown that he could be the best scorer on this team. But 2 years ago, Rokas Gustis looked like he was going to be the developing star for this team. Who do you think is going to be the star player, quote unquote, in this year's squad?
Well, I think you can talk about two different things here. You can talk about the star player and the best scorer on the team. To me, the best scorer on this team is Justin Wright Foreman. He proved it last year. All the players say that when they're in the gym practicing, he's just a lights-out scorer. And then I think their star player, however, is Rokas Gustis. He can do it all on both ends of the floor. Maybe look for him to score a couple more points this year, but we know he's one of the best rebounders in the country, so I would say he's their star player.
Last year, Rokas Gustis had injuries to deal with, and he was never able to really get complete playing time out on that court. And as an athlete, you want that consistency. And he tried to battle back from injuries, try to get back out there. He just wasn't able to, and you saw Justin Wright Foreman really develop into a superstar, which is great. But I think this team goes the way Rokas Gustis goes. If he's up there getting boards, getting double-digit points, he can average a double-double a game, which we saw him do in his sophomore year. If he's that player from his sophomore year and his senior year now, I definitely think this Pride's opportunities to compete in the CAA increase.
Now, the tricky thing is this is a Pride team that has always revolved around the point guard play. You don't see this as a team that will back down Rokas Gustis and let him distribute the offense. So it's going to be up to the point guard to kind of decide where this team goes offensively and who gets the ball when. Now, there's two options here in this year's team, just like there were last year. Dejure Bowie, who's coming back from injury, a very explosive young player, and Kenny Wormley, who had a terrific job in one of the best junior colleges last year. Who do you see as being kind of the go-to player at point guard, at least to start the season for these guys?
I think it's Dejure Bowie for now. I think that last year, obviously, the injury really hurt him. He was off to a pretty solid start to the season, and so far he seems like, from talking to some of the players and coaches, it seems like he may be the candidate to be a breakout player for this team, Dejure Bowie. So I think you're going to look for him, and like you said, Anders, the point guard position is vital for this team because they are a run-and-gun offense, so the ability to move the ball is key.
I think Dejure Bowie is going to come out this season with a little bit of revenge on his mind, not against anyone in particular, but he didn't get to play last year. It was expected him and Justin Wright Foreman, the two sophomores. Wanya Green had graduated. It was finally Dejure Bowie's time to show what he learned from his freshman year, watching from and learning from Green. But the injury derailed him, and he wasn't really able to get a lot of opportunities. But he saw Justin Wright Foreman succeed, and I think he wants that same type of success and believes in himself as the point guard of this team. And as you mentioned, the way the point guard goes is the way this team's going to go. With so many different scorers, it's crucial that ball is distributed evenly between Rokas Gustis, Justin Wright Foreman, and whoever else takes the court.
Now, outside of Bowie, who you just pointed out as a potential breakout player, are there any other players on this team you think have the potential to be kind of a breakout star this year?
I mean, Joel Angus, the transfer from graduate college, the graduate transfer to Hofstra now, he's looked really, really good so far in preseason workouts and things. So I think that he could be a guy who might be able to play a vital role at the number 4 position on the court as far as doing some important things for this team.
I think off the bench, Hunter Sabetti is going to be somebody that they're going to turn to, and we saw last season really take over crucial minutes for Rokas Gustis, especially when he got hurt. Definitely those bench players are going to be crucial success towards this team. A 6-man off the bench is so important in basketball, so I definitely think for the Pride, those players coming off the bench are really going to have to step up and give the starters a little bit of a breather, especially Bowie, who's coming off of injury. He's going to need a little bit more time to get back into the swing of things.
When we come back, Chris Detweiler will be sitting down with Luke Brown from our Hofstra Pride men's soccer team. Don't go anywhere. Sports Beat is coming right back.
I like to eat apples and bananas. I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
One in 5 children struggles with hunger in America. Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to Sports Beat right here on Heat. I'm Chris Detweiler, and joining me this evening from the Hofstra men's soccer team, we've got Luke Brown right here in studio. Thank you so much for coming in, Luke. So we'll start things off. You guys finished with an overall record of 6-6-6. Just tell me about the season in general and your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, we got off to a great start with a 1-0 win at Penn State, so we were all obviously buzzing from that. And then went on a pretty torrid run, had a lot of ties, and then towards the end of the season we started to pick it up with 5 wins from 6. Went into the quarterfinal, we thought we had a good chance at home, and just didn't quite go our way, so I feel like the season ended a bit too early for us, just as we were picking up form.
Now, you mentioned the ties that came right in the middle of the season. Did that kind of affect just the flow of the season in general, you know, tie after tie after tie?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, but we've got a pretty strong group. We always knew we were going to come out of it and we did with the 5 wins from the 6. But I think for any team, when you're tying that many games, especially in a row, it is tough to take, and it's definitely a mental block some of the time.
Now, you personally, you finished the season with 3 goals and three assists. You led the team with 9 points overall. Tell me about your season personally and how you felt about it.
I mean, personally, it was a tough one, like it was for the team. Didn't quite go how I was expecting. It's obviously nice to get the goals and assists, but yeah, like I said, didn't go particularly as I thought it would in my head after last year. So hopefully make up for that next year.
Now, you ended the season, like you mentioned, in a bit of a disappointing fashion, a 4-1 loss to the Tribe of William and Mary, the second year in a row that they knocked you out of the CAA tournament. Take me through that game.
I mean, they're a very good side. Going into it, we were extremely confident. They had beaten us already in the regular CAA season, but our game plan was good. We knew what we had to do to win. Just didn't quite fall for us on the day. They got a lot of good attacking players, and yeah, unfortunately, small decisions cost us. So hopefully we'll get our revenge next year.
Now, going into that game, it was here at Hofstra. You had won the previous 3 home matches in the season. What is home field advantage really a big difference to you or to your team in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think for any team, it's a massive advantage. We didn't lose at home all year until that quarter-final. I think if you look at most college teams, their home record is a lot better than their away one. So yeah, home advantage definitely makes a difference with the home fans as well. Like I said again, didn't quite go for us in the quarter-final at home how I'd expected, but yeah, I'd definitely say home advantage, big thing.
Now, you guys are losing 7 seniors, including big names like Danny Elliott and John Frazier. How can your team kind of fill in those gaps next year to fill in the gaps from the loss of the seniors? Yeah,
I mean, we've got a few freshmen that sort of got some decent minutes this year. They had a couple of injuries, but I think they can definitely fill the voids those guys are leaving. I'm not too sure who else we have coming in, but I think from what we have now, we're in a pretty good situation. So they'll be missed, but no reason the guys can't step up and replace them.
Now, with the loss of those seniors, it's going to be up to you now to kind of lead the team as you're going to be a junior next season. Do you feel like you're ready to lead this team?
I'd like to think so, yeah. Try and get a bit more mature on and off the field, but yeah, I think I've learnt a lot from the guys, like you said, John Fraser, Danny Elliott, and sort of know what's needed to take that role, so hopefully I can step up and do that.
Final question for you. What was your most memorable moment this season?
For me, well, individually and for the team, I'd say the UNCW win at home when we won in overtime. I feel like that was a massive turning point in our season. It helped us get that 5 wins from the 6 and got us on a real buzz. But yeah, again, unfortunately, after that, our season ended a bit early. So.
Great, thank you. So thanks to Luke Brown, and congratulations on another solid season. When we come back, we'll have the week ahead as well as FaceTimes. You're not going to want to miss those, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Welcome back to Sports Beat. FaceTimes are just around the corner, but first, Lanaya Harris is back with the weekend ahead in Hofstra Sports. Take it away, Lanaya.
The week ahead for Hofstra University sports teams is as followed. On Friday, November 10th, the Hofstra women's soccer team will take on Auburn University in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Both our women's and men's cross-country team will also be taking part in NCAA competition in Buffalo, New York. Everyone get excited because on Friday, November 10th, our men's basketball team has their opening night against Army West Point and Hofstra University's David S. Mack Arena. On Saturday, November 11th, our wrestling team goes head-to-head with Kent State University in Troy, New York. The Hofstra Pride volleyball team will wrap up the regular season on Sunday, November 12th at 1 p.m. against James Madison. And finally, on Sunday, November 12th, the women's basketball team kicks off the season against the University of Maryland, Baltimore County at the Mack Sports Complex. This has been your week ahead. I'm Lanaya Harris. Back to you, Anders.
Thanks, Lanaya. And now it's a moment you've all been waiting for. It's time for FaceTimes. We've got the rookie Kenny Conrad leading things off for us this week. Kenny, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Anders. Yesterday, baseball tragically lost one of the best to ever toe the rubber. Former Cy Young Award winner and 8-time All-Star Roy Halladay was tragically killed when his plane crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. Halladay was arguably the best pitcher in the game of baseball for several years, winning 20 games twice in the years 2003 and 2010. The man they called Doc truly was that, a master of pitching the way that he had wanted to, and it was incredibly effective. He never did it with an overpowering fastball, but rather an arsenal of weapons, including his best pitch, the sinker, as well as a big breaking curveball. To this day, Halladay is just one of 2 pitchers ever to throw a postseason no-hitter and is one of 6 pitchers in Major League history to win a Cy Young Award in both the American and National Leagues. The most impressive part of Halladay's run was the time in baseball history in which it came, a time where home runs were being hit left and right in what was donned the steroid era. 203 wins later, Halladay will surely be in consideration for Cooperstown when his day comes. Roy Halladay was just 40 years old and leaves behind 2 children and a wife, Brandy, as well as an entire baseball community that is shocked at his tragic and untimely death.
The New York Knicks are playing good, sound basketball. Yes, the same New York Knicks that last season spilled dysfunction all across Madison Square Garden and headlines everywhere. They shipped out once beloved star Carmelo Anthony prior to start of the season, paving the way for a new superstar to take center stage, Kristaps Porzingis. The same guy that Knicks fans booed on draft day 2.5 years ago. Remember that footage of a Knicks fan crying on draft day? Well, the Knicks were considered fools for their selection with the 4th overall pick in 2015. However, fast forward and Porzingis is not only taking over as New York's biggest NBA star, but he's making history as well. He joined Patrick Ewing and as the only other Knick to record 40 points and 5 blocks in a game. He also has more points than any Knick through 10 games with 300. The best part about KP's dominance is how quickly he has turned into the go-to guy for New York. In a comeback victory on Sunday versus the Pacers, he scored 17 of his 40 points in the 4th quarter, clinching the win. The spotlight does not seem too bright for the young star, even with all the criticism he has received, most noticeably from his former president of basketball operations, Phil Jackson, who suggested the team should trade Porzingis. If anything, he has taken that as motivation into the 2017 campaign. New York is 6-1 in their last 7 games, with Porzingis leading the charge. The league has been put on notice, rims have been warned, the rest is up to KP.
The Astros are MLB World Series champions, and they've perhaps changed the way we think about baseball along the way. For seasons on end, the Astros put together less than inspiring seasons, allowing them to collect high draft picks. Those draft picks later turned into stars like Carlos Correa and George Springer. Baseball hasn't really been known for tanking in the past, a method often used in the NBA to purposely do badly in a season in order to ensure the acquisition of young talent in the next year's amateur draft. Now that the Astros have found success applying a similar method, the question arises as to whether or not other teams will attempt the same in the future. It's a little bit more difficult to do in baseball, a sport where players commonly take up to 5 years to debut after being drafted. But for those teams who are patient enough, the approach may pay off with a juggernaut team down the line and a nice ring or two. Now, you guys, I want to talk a little bit more about that baseball where it seems like teams are really kind of putting together those rotten seasons on end. You mentioned the Nationals as another team that has kind of done that as well. And there's kind of a mixture of that. The Astros did that, allowed them to become a superstar team, but there's other teams like the Cubs and Yankees who didn't really have to do that to become great teams. So where is baseball going from here?
I think it's really difficult to tank an entire baseball season. You're asking professional athletes to lose for 6 months. It's not like, well, the NBA is a long season as well, but 162 games in baseball, to ask them to go out and lose all those games, I highly doubt that would happen across baseball. In an era of free agency and trades, I think there's several other ways to build that superstar team, and plenty of teams have showcased that.
Well, baseball is a different sport because you see guys like Aaron Judge who take up till they're the age of 24 to get to the major leagues, 25 years old. So, I mean, it's definitely a lot different, whereas a football player can come in and make an impact in his first season. It's hard to kind of predict and tank for the future, so I think that's why maybe we haven't seen too much of that.
Right, you could tank and you could purposely want to get Markelle Fultz in basketball or Leonard Fournette in football and say, you know, look at those guys in college, I want them on my team now. In baseball, you never know, as you say, who's going to be good. The number 1 overall draft pick usually is a major leaguer, isn't always a good major leaguer. So you could find star talent up and down the rounds. Mike Piazza was a 62nd round pick once, and he became a Hall of Famer. So baseball is really a unique sport in that way. And I think you're right in the sense of, you know, baseball is definitely not nearly as transparent about the way that they've been doing things. In the NBA, they'll bench players for unknown injuries that they make up toward the end of a season to kind of throw the season. So in baseball, it maybe won't be kind of that way, but it seems like teams are definitely starting to, you know, recognize that draft picks are still important and that young talent, if you get a bunch of it at once, you're going to have a good team at some point.
And I think that's the key. You need a bunch of young talent. Baseball is less of an individualistic sport. You can get a superstar player or a superstar pitcher, but he only goes out every 5 days. It's not like football where you get a franchise quarterback, he can carry your team, or you get a franchise shooting guard that can carry your team as well. I think it's a lot more difficult to just accumulate one superstar from the MLB and transform that into a superstar team. I think you need a multitude of players in order to succeed across baseball.
And look at the Dodgers, they're a perfect example. They made it to the World Series this year, and you might say, well, they went out and got guys like Adrian Gonzalez and Zach Greinke. They aren't even there anymore. It was guys like Cody Bellinger and homegrown talent that really ended up making or breaking their team and taking them to the World Series. So I think an important mix is very crucial to baseball.
That's a good point you mentioned about the Dodgers and the Yankees as well. Those are both teams that spent a lot of money. The number 1 and number 2 teams in payroll right there, but those are also teams that were both known for carrying their teams with young talent. Now, do you think it's unusual, the amount of young talent we're seeing in these good teams, and do you think it's kind of a new wave that we're seeing in baseball?
Well, I think the youth movement, first off, is great for baseball. It definitely brings more attention to the sport, but I definitely don't think it's one of the newer things. I think it's just that they're trying to make baseball into a more entertaining sport. You hear about the argument of bat flipping, and I think it's the younger players that bring that to the game, so maybe that's why we're noticing them more. You wouldn't have seen old-time players bat flipping like you see Yasiel Puig now doing it, or George Springer, so definitely more of a youth movement for MLB.
Well, for me, this is one of the most fun baseball seasons that I remember, and it was all the young guys that came up and made a big impact, did a lot of fun things on and off the field, so I think that the youth movement is great for baseball.
That's about all the time we have for this week's episode of Sports Beat. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to tune back in on November 29th for our final show of the semester. For everyone here in Studio B, I'm Anders Jorstad. Good night, everyone.